Psycho-emotionally, I looked at this correctly, logistically and strategically. I was okay there too. I was making the right decision and moving forward with this. So here's where I'm going to tell you the financial payoff and the business mistake that I made here. Because this obviously was a business transaction. And that's exactly where I made the mistake. So the mistake that I made with this guy, again, thank you to all the paid subscribers. Because I think this has value in social or romantic relationships, but it also has value, obviously, in business relationships. And the mistake that I made with this guy, if it wasn't strategic and it wasn't, psycho-emotional, like I failed to read him, then what was it? Or as the Colombians say, dar papaya, which means basically give papaya. In Northern European mythology, they have a phrase that Robert Bly talks about, which is giving away your gold. So it's the same thing.
Why aren't you happy? What do you want that you do not have?
At the moment, peace and quiet. No need to seize the last word, Lord Baelish. I'll assume it was something clever.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Dr. Vasquez here, following up on last night's spontaneous and multi-topic video, which I actually think turned out pretty well, considering that it was completely spontaneous and at the end of a really stressful and multitasking week. So last night I talked about at least 5 different topics, which I'll review right now from my extensive notes. So topic number 1 that I started at the beginning of the video talking about was that sometimes you just got to piss people off. And sometimes if you're happy and on any level successful, you're going to quote unquote piss people off just because they're jealous, or maybe they have like a certain morality that implies that life should be miserable. Like, and I think my dad had a little bit of that, for example, and my mom too, for that matter. But my dad wasn't really religious, but he was a little bit Catholic, just because of his culture. And so sometimes he had the idea that life was suffering and that life had to be miserable, and that if a person was happy, they were doing something wrong, basically. So, sorry, I'm gonna have to turn that music off or down. I can probably just unplug it. Or maybe not. But anyway, some people have like a mindset or a mentality or a morality or a religion that implies to them that life should be miserable. And so if they see you happy, they'll be upset with you, or they'll find some fault with you just because you're happy. Sorry, I guess I am going to have to turn that down just a little bit. So give me a second. It is a great song, but it's a little noisy for right now. So, anyway, sometimes you just got to piss people off and they can suck it up and they can fix their own problems, If somebody has a morality that says life is suffering and life should be miserable, then you're not going to fix that, and they will always find fault in your happiness. So that was kind of the introduction. The real topic number 1 was I talked about risk management versus risk perception and how that gets tied into a sense of like moral superiority, So, for example, like the medical profession will tell you, oh, well, you shouldn't smoke cigarettes, you shouldn't smoke a pipe, you shouldn't smoke a cigar, as if those things were equal, which medically they're not even equal. But you'll see signs everywhere, at least I see signs, like in shopping centers, they say, you can be comfortable here because this is a tobacco-free zone, or an area that's free of tobacco smoke. Well, those same dumbass shopping centers were the ones, telling people they had to face mask and social distance. And all of that propaganda was to push the emergency authorized injections, which we now know actually carry more risk than using cocaine or smoking. So that's why I talked a bit last night about the distinction between risk management, which is one of my favorite topics, risk management, risk perception, and kind of the moral contamination that goes along with that, right? So again, like the medical profession will always tell you, oh, you shouldn't smoke, you shouldn't use drugs, you shouldn't use cocaine or whatever. And that's why I did a few weeks ago a comparison between what's the mortality risk between emergency authorized injections, which 80% of you got, versus using cocaine. Even I think the study was done in patients with congestive heart failure, so it was even higher risk than normal. And then, or long-term cigarette smoking, and the risks of using cocaine as a patient with heart failure, or long-term smoking, or getting an emergency authorized injection for a fake pandemic, the risks are actually in the same range, But like I said last night, the distinction is if somebody's a smoker, they can quit smoking and then they reduce their mortality over time. But if you got an injection because of government propaganda and a globalist takeover of the media, then you can't uninject yourself. So again, the distinction is real versus perceived risk, and this whole thing about moral superiority that people tie into it. Oh, well, people take the advice of their government, they take the advice of their doctor, they take the advice of some medical association completely paid off by drug companies, and they think they've done the right thing. But the reality, we have to base our decisions not on risk management per se, or I'm sorry, we have to base our decisions not on risk perception, but on the actual numbers. And that's what we have. We have the numbers now, and the numbers are, roughly in the same ballpark between cocaine, long-term tobacco use, and 1 or 2 emergency authorized injections. So that was topic number 1. And then topic number 2 is important. I was talking about, and I have talked about before, how in business, a lot of manipulation takes place. People are trying to get money. And they're not trying to make money, they're trying to get money. And the easiest way to get it is to rip somebody off. And so that has happened to me really, I guess only twice. And one was just a couple $100. But the most recent one was a little more expensive than that. So when you see the video that I did last night, you'll see that I was actively trying to understand how I got duped by this guy. And I was approaching it from like an emotional or social standpoint, trying to understand manipulative behavior and how this guy was able to kind of bamboozle me. And it's not like it was totally, everything I did was reasonable, but at a certain point, we have to do more than just behave reasonably. We have to behave in a manner that's actually successful. And I was not successful in my engagement with this guy. So whether I made a mistake or didn't make a mistake or made it for this reason or the other, I have to study that to understand it so I don't repeat the same mistake. And so, like I was starting to say in the video that I posted last night, you'll see me trying to go through and figure out what I did wrong, or did I miss a red flag? Did I miss a yellow flag? Did I see a yellow flag over here, but then I saw 3 green flags, and so I overrode the yellow flag because everything else looked good? If that's what happened, then that's still reasonable. Like I said, everybody's got a yellow flag here or there. Like I said, I'm sure I have my own, but whatever. But like I said before, like when I first started, I guess, dating my wife 12 years ago, or 13 years ago, or whatever. She had one yellow flag that I was like, well, things are moving a little bit too fast for me. But, we've been together now for 12 years and it's been pretty damn perfect. So, just because you see a yellow flag doesn't mean you have to, run for the hills. It just means you have to put it in context. And I put it in context and I still got kind of bamboozled. But this morning, again, you can see the video last night. I was trying to figure this thing out from a psychological standpoint or a psychiatric standpoint. And I woke up this morning and I totally figured out what I had done wrong. So I'll talk about that in just a moment. To respect the subscribers who actually pay for their subscription, I have to keep some things appropriately private for them. And I do that even more so if it's really like a higher level conversation, so to speak, one that really involves like the expertise that I've worked for years. I obviously don't have any obligation to give that away for free in its entirety, even though I usually give away like half of it. But on the rare occasion where I really talk about financial strategies that have reasonable, financial value, then yeah, people can pay for that. And it takes me a lot of time to put these videos together. I have to make them. I edit just about all of my videos. A few videos, if they're short and casual and I feel reasonably good about it, I'll just process them and post them without a lot of editing. But generally speaking, the duration of a video, let's say it's 30 minutes, usually takes 4 times that much time to actually get it on the site. So again, if it's a 30-minute video, it takes me an hour to process it, and then I have to review it, which is another equal to the time, so it'd be another 30 minutes. So like a 30-minute video is usually 2 hours of work. And that's if it's a spontaneous video. If it's a professional level video, like the vitamin D series that I did or something like that, where I prepare slides and then I kind of do a more higher level of editing, those can be 10 times. So easily. I mean, a 2-hour professional level video could take a whole week, easy. Including even more so if I have to spend a lot of time researching it. Like for example, that the video that I posted a few years ago on NAC, N-acetylcysteine or acetylcysteine, that was a 2-hour video that probably took 4 weeks, you know. So anyway, like I said, out of respect for the financial value that some videos have and respect for the people who actually pay for their subscription, the end part of this video I have to keep private for them. So third topic, I talked briefly about the difference between cigarette smoking, cigar smoking, and pipe smoking. Cigarettes tend to have more of an addictive quality, both through nicotine, but also through just the pure consumption of time. So again, you know, most cigarette smokers smoke every day, typically a pack a day. That's 20 cigarettes. Let's say 5 minutes per cigarette. That's 100 minutes. So that's an hour and 40 minutes. And if they have to go outside to smoke or do a little prep or whatever, or go buy the cigarettes, you're talking about 2 hours a day just dedicated to smoking cigarettes. So it's not simply a biochemical addiction. It's also a way to just escape reality and say, fuck it, I'm going outside to smoke a cigarette, and people check out. So, you know, part of the reason I included that comment was because I also referenced an article that I had read probably 30 years ago, even though the article itself was actually published apparently in 1977, and from the British Medical Journal. And what they showed in that article is that people who smoke pipe and cigar do not have the same increased risk for mortality, mortality that we see in cigarette smokers. And that's because pipes and cigars mostly just stay in the mouth. So it's mostly the experience of the flavor with practically zero nicotine. And again, segueing now into topic number 4, the authors commented at the end of their abstract and the end of their article. They said, well, if smokers of pipe and tobacco aren't getting any nicotine, then we don't understand why they smoke. And I just said that was stupid. Because again, it's part of the ritual. And topic number 4, which will be my last topic right now before I go back and talk about the insight that I had about my mistake with this guy that cost me money. Again, part of, you know, smoking it for men, part of smoking a cigar or a pipe is kind of a ceremonial or ritual thing. And one of the phrases that I learned in military school, kind of intuitively, even though this was actually taught to me by my physics professor, he said, sometimes you just got to separate the men from the boys. And that's, again, you can go back and look at the video, but that's part of cigar and pipe smoking for men, is separating the men from the boys. And I gave you an example of that in the video last night. So now for the final component of this, which is really the main thing that I want to talk about. I want to talk about what I did wrong that cost me a few $1,000. And the process of this was kind of upsetting, but the conclusion of it really wasn't that upsetting, because I already know this is just part of doing business. Sometimes sometimes you make money, sometimes in business we make money, sometimes we lose money. Sometimes we make the right decision and it just turns out bad. You know, for example, in manufacturing, you can buy a piece of equipment and the damn thing breaks. Maybe the warranty doesn't cover it, or you have to, even if the warranty covers it. Like if you have a piece of machinery and you're in the Americas, so to speak, the extreme end of the Western Hemisphere, and you're ordering, and it's a piece of equipment from Europe, even if you bought the right piece of equipment, even if they honor the warranty, and they have guaranteed service, you could still lose money because you got to wait. You got to wait 2 months to get the piece from Europe. So that's what I've said before in some of my other videos where I talk about kind of mentoring young people in business or just through growing up. Part of doing business includes the inherent inefficiency of those processes. You can buy the right equipment from the right person, have a good relationship with them, they have high integrity, and you still lose money because you're waiting a month to get the part that you need because it has to get shipped from Europe. So, losing money at times in business it's just part of the territory, and it sucks, and we try to minimize it, but it still happens. So again, going back to the financial value of the insight that I realized this morning when I woke up. Like I said, last night I tried to approach this from an emotional or analytical standpoint. And somehow this morning I woke up and I realized it wasn't that. That's not where the mistake was made. The mistake that I made in this last transaction was simply this. I needed